Attaining true prosperity. True prosperity does not simply mean material and financial prosperity, because we are something more than animals. We have something within us far greater as human beings. Because we are children of God, we have within us the spiritual side which must be fed, which must be nurtured. And to attain true prosperity, we must take care of not only our material and financial conditions, but far greater, we must take care of our spiritual side. We provide for this material life. Why not provide for the spiritual side? Because God is our highest need. To know the spiritual side which lives eternally is our greatest necessity. And so, in attaining true prosperity, we must watch out and especially take care of our spiritual side, the spiritual nature. Now, in material things, we can create a material estate in various ways. If you happen to have something left to you from a rich uncle, you have it there and then. Or you can take out life insurance and create immediately an estate, something to take care of you. And when you make lots of money, then you do not need that insurance. You have created a material estate to sustain you, to take care of your material needs, to take care of you financially. Now, if we do that, why should we not create a spiritual estate? And it is spiritual law that we can do that. Just as in material things we can create a material estate, how much more so should we create a spiritual estate? And it is spiritual law that we can absolutely do that. Now, how do we do this? Remember, we are attaining all around true prosperity. Now, how do we create this spiritual estate? In Daniel, in the 10th chapter, the 12th verse, there we have the key. For it says, "Fear not, Daniel, from the first day that thou didst set thy heart to understanding, and thou didst chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy word." And so the minute we decide that God is our highest and greatest need, and know that in our heart, and begin to discipline ourselves to carry out the understanding which we know, then from that moment on, we have created a spiritual estate within us. We are on the road to true prosperity. That's a wonderful thing to remember. We do not have to wait till we die. No. Right now, the moment that we understand within our hearts that God is our greatest need, our first and foremost necessity, and begin to discipline ourselves, we must not forget that. Right then and there, God hears us. Right then and there, we are saved. But we simply have to make it dynamic to our consciousness and know through following the channel which God has sent that He does hear us. And we have to know beyond question of a doubt that He is watching over us and taking care of our spiritual needs. But now, isn't that a wonderful thing? The minute you just surrender yourself to God and your heart understands that you know He is what you need far above anything else, the moment you do that and then begin to act and discipline yourself, then you have created a real spiritual estate within yourself. Then you are on the road, without question of a doubt, to true prosperity. Now we can create that spiritual estate in an easier way, of course, when you accept a guru. I remember when I met the Master the first time, and he said, "Doctor," he said, "will you love me as I love you?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "I take charge of your life." Right then, I had created, I didn't realize it until later, I had created a spiritual estate. The greatest thing I could have done. Now each and every one of us can do that. Because as Jesus said, "I am gone from you, but still I am with you." So the Master, who is not with us in body, he is with us in spirit, in a far greater and a closer way. And if you accept God through the channel of the Master, if you realize through the understanding of your heart that God will speak to you and guide you through the channel he has sent, one of his greatest saints, the beloved Master, right then you have created your spiritual estate. I'd like to read at this time the Master's definition of true prosperity. He says true success means a balanced life of meditation, intellectual studies, health, happiness, and money-making. In other words, spiritual side is necessary, therefore meditation, of course, is the greatest, because that gives us God contact. Intellectual studies are necessary, because unless we understand certain things, we cannot experience those things, and through experience we progress. We may know about the spiritual centers of the spine through the intellect. We may know about the modus operandi of the different senses of the body. But until we experience those through meditation, they are not really our own. So it is necessary to have some intellectual development. Not book learning, but just to use the intellectual development to stimulate you to make those experiences your own through self-realization. A little story comes to my mind, speaking about intellectual study and book learning and so forth. We must at least know something. We cannot be morons, so to speak. And these two gentlemen were talking together. One said to the other, he says, I'm going to have my fortune told. You can begin now to get their level of intellect. He says, I'm going to have my fortune told. Bill, he says, shall I go to a mind reader or shall I go to a palmist? Well, Bill says, by all means, he says, you go to a palmist. It's obvious, at least you have a palm. So, we must not be devoid of some intellectuality. It is good. But when the intellectuality develops into the prime function of your life to know through books this and that and this and that, that's nothing. But when you use that even moderate amount of intellect to lead you to the experience of the truth by realizing those things, that is right. Health, of course, is necessary, as the Master says, because it is quite difficult, especially in the beginning, to contact God with an unhealthy body, with aches and pains here and there, and the stomach aches and all those things. It's rather difficult. It can be done. But we should follow the health laws to be healthy. We should also take the benefit of prayer and the contact of any of the saints and those spiritual forces to alleviate our suffering, because then we can know the path of true prosperity in an easier way. Health is necessary. Happiness, of course, is necessary because that is the true goal of all prosperity. If you have lots of money and wealth and so forth and have an unhealthy body, as the Master used to say, with the stomach ache all the time, what good is it? No. Happiness is necessary. And that comes, remember, that comes from God contact. Money-making is necessary, but that money-making must be for service, because God is the sole doer. He has given us all things. Therefore, we make the money to sustain us and supply our ordinary needs, but we must also think of others. Think of others. And you know, most people who have lots of money, you can't get a dime out of them. They think of themselves. There are exceptions. So money-making is all right. We cannot sit around idly and do nothing all our lives. We will deteriorate. Make the money, but use the money for service. Service to God. And so, as the Master says, the body or our action must be developed just like the body in a balanced way. Each part of the body has its function. And so our lives must be balanced to attain true prosperity, the balance of health. Meditation is the important thing. Intellect, intellectual studies to a reasonable degree, health, and common sense money-making. That is the balanced life spoken of the Master. Now let us go on just a little bit and talk about the line of action for material success. We have to live in this life. We have to play our part in the drama of life. Therefore, we must take certain measures to make for material success. In picking your associates, this is very important. Pick those with whom you want to deal. I know a gentleman, he goes about, he watches individuals. When he sees one that has the right makeup, then he says to him, if you will come with me and work with me and do what I say, because he realized the man had that faith in him, he said, we'll be successful together. Then he takes the man, then he finds the business for that man. And so we have to pick our associates. Be sure of them. Be sure of those with whom you mix, because environment is stronger than willpower. Pick your associates. And then, whatever business you go into, know all about that business. Many people jump into business. They should be rather working for someone else, because very few have the capacity to run a business successfully. And so, in business, for material success, know all about that business in which you intend to go in with these proper associates. Those are the two essential laws for material success. Laziness hasn't any place if you wish to attain true prosperity. Laziness in material things cannot be tolerated, because no man of success was lazy. Now, if we cannot tolerate laziness in material things, how much more so should we realize that God will not tolerate laziness when you want to know Him? Because He is working all the time, never ceases to keep His great show going. And so we likewise must not be lazy. If we have a weak body, and if karmic conditions are such that it is difficult for us, God will tolerate that if you are not lazy, if you try and give at least some time to Him. And so laziness is taboo, especially in spiritual things. One other thing comes to my mind is familiarity. Do not be too familiar with people. Some people, you can mix with them, they're never too familiar. That's their makeup. But others, You have to watch, because there must be the dignity between soul and soul. There must be that dignity of children of God mixing together. So watch out. Too much familiarity is bad. I remember in Boston, when the Master first came, one time I went to see him. He stayed at this lady's house, and he was gone. And she said, he's gone away. So I found him. And the trouble was that they were becoming too familiar with him. And he wanted his peace. He wanted that dignity of his soul uninterrupted. And so he went off, and I found him in a little room by himself. After a little bit, he came back. And those people with whom he stayed realized that they were becoming too familiar and trying to order and run his life. Who wants that? We are all children of God with a certain dignity that must be preserved. So there you have a few rules as to the proper action for material success. There are one or two other things. First is this. There is the intuitional way to judge people with whom you want to mix. You look into their eyes, but you have to be very calm, because everything that person ever was is in the brain, and it is reflected in the eye. And if you look calmly into the eyes, you will know through intuition immediately whether that person is right or not. Now, that doesn't mean you've got to gawk right at them. Who likes that? No one likes that. You don't have to. The minute you are calm, you know, some people, you don't know whether to start running or what. That's not the way. Feel the calmness of God within you. That's the intuition of His presence. One glance, and you'll know that person. If you are calm, you have to be calm. That's the intuitional way to know people. The other way is the spiritual way. Meditate deeply. This is important. Meditate deeply. And when you are interiorized and visualize, though, the eyes of that person, feeling at the same time in your heart. And if you feel a fear, watch out. Don't mix with that person. If you feel the calmness, then you are safe. So those are the ways now that you can use to make your material life a success. But the greatest all-round prosperity comes from what? It comes from God contact. Because God has all things, He is omniscient. Everything has come from His omniscient light. Now, if we know Him, if we contact Him, then we have the greatest way to follow to attain true prosperity in all things, in every act of life, in every way, and especially in attaining spiritual things. Know God. God contact is the greatest thing. He is the doer of all things. You can understand this by the dream. He is dreaming the whole universe. He is dreaming this intricate creation. He is in you and me. In every one of us, it is He who is talking to you. It is He who is listening to His own talk. God is the sole doer. Everything is made from the one infinite light of God, the one force in the universe, but in that force is His great love and omniscience. God is the sole doer. Even God has made all the saints. It is He who is in every saint. Every saint is made from the rays of God's great light. Now, perhaps if we contact Him, He will make you and me perhaps a saint. It is up to Him. He is the sole doer. We have nothing to do with it. We think we do. He allows us to fool around and play a bit, but He still is the sole doer. So perhaps if we contact Him, remember, He will make each one of us a saint, because Jesus said, the things I do, ye shall do, and greater things. God is the sole doer. You don't know what He will do with you. So it behooves us, in attaining true prosperity, to first and foremost contact God. Because we came alone. We came absolutely alone. And we will go alone. There won't be any mother and father or friends. There'll be just God alone. But if we love Him and follow Him and surrender to Him, as it says in Daniel, and make up our minds to the understanding of our hearts that we want Him and discipline ourselves to attain Him, then perhaps, no doubt, one of His great channels, the saints, will meet us as we go over, and we will not be alone, but consciously be with God. And so God contact is the greatest thing in attaining true prosperity. But remember, finally, whether we are a success or fail, whether we have opulence or want, whether we are cast out in this world without a place to lay our heads, even if we have not one friend left, but we have God, then we have, without doubt, attained true prosperity. Jesus said, the Son of Man hath no place to lay his head. What do you care if everybody is against you? What if all your friends leave you? Those which you expect are your friends may leave you. What of it? Forget them, but never leave God. Because if we have Him, in spite of all reverses, we are a success. We have attained true prosperity.